apparently the American Bar Association also violated their own policies, their own conduct rules when they were attacking Montana's former Solicitor General, Lawrence VanDyke. Well, here with us to talk about that and more on Montana Talks, Mike Davis, president of the Article 3 Project, joining us from Washington. Mike, thanks for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. First off, your take on the nomination of Lawrence VanDyke, President Trump's nominee to serve on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Lawrence VanDyke is exactly the type of a judicial nominee we would want on a Court of Appeals, especially the Ninth Circuit, which is, before President Trump took office, was so out of whack. Lawrence VanDyke graduated magna cum laude from Harvard Law School. He was the editor of the Harvard Law Review. He served as a law clerk to Judge Janice Rogers Brown on the D.C. Circuit, which is the second highest court in the land, right below the Supreme Court. He's the only person to have served as the state solicitor general for two states, Nevada and Montana. He's argued 24 times before federal appellate courts. He's been the counsel of record 39 times on Supreme Court briefs. This guy is right out of central casting. And for the ABA to say that he's not qualified is just ludicrous.
Well, and I was making the point, our liberal newspaper, the Liberal Billings Gazette editorial board, is now bashing Lawrence VanDyke because of his Christian beliefs. But it's interesting. They heap praise upon Ninth Circuit Court Judge Sid Thomas, who's a nice guy. I've met him a couple of times. I mean, he's certainly more liberal than you and I, but a nice guy. But, you know, he was I think, an intern in a state district court and then basically was a lawyer in private practice for most of his career before he got put on the bench by President Clinton. But really, when it comes down to it, the only reason he got the federal bench job was because he campaigned door to door for former Democrat Senator Max Baucus. So they say he's qualified, but yet that whole resume you just gave for Lawrence VanDyke, and yet the ABA and these liberal activists say that he's not qualified for the bench. It's just unbelievable to me, the hypocrisy here.
Well, yeah, and you have to look at the ABA's process. It is a fatally flawed process. They said that they spoke with 60 individuals as part of their ABA evaluation. Okay, well, who are these people? What did they say? Do you have any recordings, transcripts, notes, reports? Who was this supposed second reviewer that you sent in to evaluate this rating? Why didn't this person ever speak with Lawrence VanDyke? Why won't the ABA release this information? This is a complete black box. And I think that this was a political drive-by shooting of Lawrence VanDyke, literally on the eve of his confirmation hearing last week. And it feels a lot like what the ABA did, what they attempted to do and failed to do against Judge Steve Gross on a Nebraska-based seat to the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals. You have to remember this. The ABA is a liberal dark money group fronting for trial lawyers who donate millions of dollars to Democrat politicians. And you have to also remember this second piece. The ABA's evaluation of nominees is fatally flawed because it is intentionally structured to couple these liberal activists, like these ABA evaluators. In this case, it was Marcia Davenport in Montana, who actually donated to Lawrence VanDyke's political opponent in the 2014 Montana Supreme Court race. So you have these political opponents evaluating these nominees, and they use this subjective black box process that oftentimes results in these unfair hits on conservative judicial nominees like Lawrence VanDyke.
Yeah, it's like, I get it that the ABA is left-leaning. It's basically a liberal lobby which has had undue influence on the process. But you'd think these lawyers would have been smart enough to at least fake it, at least make it look like they tried to be fair. When you put somebody who's contributed to their political opponent to head up the evaluation panel, they're not even trying to look fair. But the other thing is apparently they violated their own conduct rules in the process. In fact, I saw a Washington Examiner story, which actually led me to a tweet from a Cato Institute legal scholar, and then that's how I found out about you and your organization, because apparently you guys are calling out the fact that the ABA apparently violated their own conduct rules here.
Yeah, so we have this on the Article 3 Project's website, Article number3project.org, the ABA violated its own rules in three ways. The second reviewer that came in never interviewed VanDyke and never even attempted to contact him. That violates ABA policy 2D. The second way they violated their own policies and procedures, the ABA primary reviewer should have recused due to that donation to VanDyke's political opponent in the 2014 Montana Supreme Court race. That's ABA policy 2E. And then the third way that the ABA violated its own policies was the ABA's last-minute submission of its review at 7 p.m. the night before the morning hearing was less than the required time required to submit the report in violation of ABA policy 2F.
Wow.
Here's what's important about this second review that really needs to be cleared up. And actually, we've called for a criminal probe of this. The ABA submitted in their letter to the Senate Judiciary Committee the following statement. It says, quote, Mr. VanDyke would not say affirmatively that he would be fair to any litigant before him, notably members of the LGBTQ community. Okay, that is a factual assertion that the ABA has submitted to the committee. It's a pretty damning one. Lawrence VanDyke denied this under oath at his hearing. And so then you have to look at if they had this second reviewer look at this thing, why wouldn't that second reviewer ask Lawrence VanDyke about this issue that the first reviewer raised? That is something that you absolutely would want to verify.
So you're saying they could be held criminally liable here, like what, for perjury or what? How could they be gone after from the legal system?
So it's 18 U.S.C. Section 1001, which is providing materially false statements to Congress, and that is apparently what the ABA has done here. There's this outlandish charge that basically he can't be fair to the gay community. He denied that under oath last Wednesday. The ABA has this Marcia Davenport who did this review, who is a known contributor, a known political opponent to Lawrence VanDyke, and the second reviewer never even asked Lawrence VanDyke about this. This is a political drive-by shooting, and this statement that the ABA made to the Senate Judiciary Committee should be investigated under 18 U.S.C. 1001. You could not provide materially false statements to Congress. That is a felony.
Well, they need to press forward on this then, and hey, let's just get the facts out there. By the way, I did reach out to Marcia Davenport. Our producer, Travis Lee, was good enough to go out and track down her email. I shot her an email. Never heard back from her, but I did hear back from, let's just say, somebody at the ABA who said she's not able to do interviews at this time. But on background, an ABA staffer, since it was on background, I can't use the name, but basically wanted to stress that she did not write the letter that went to that hearing. So it's interesting to me that even though she conducted the evaluation, that they want to stress that she did not write the letter. It's like, maybe there's some.
I think she might be worried about criminal liability here. I would just say this about the ABA in this process. This is an un-American process that the ABA has. They have these secret reviewers gathering this secret evidence and making these outlandish charges against conservative judicial nominees, and there's no ability for Lawrence VanDyke and these other. How are they supposed to respond to these anonymous attacks? That, hey, Mr. VanDyke, we think that you're a bigot. Essentially, how is he supposed to respond to that? The ABA has advocated for more due process for terrorists in Gitmo than the ABA provides to conservative judicial nominees.
We're talking with Mike Davis, president of the Article 3 Project. And Mike, as I understand it, the Article 3 Project, it's all about coming to the defense of President Trump's nominees, these judicial nominees, because we've just seen, from the Kavanaugh hearings, just how despicable the left has become here in trying to attack, good men and women who are being nominated to serve in these capacities.
Yeah, so I served as the chief counsel for nominations for Chairman Chuck Grassley last Congress, and I was one of the staff leaders for the Kavanaugh confirmation. And I saw during my time in the Senate just how low the left will go to take out conservative judicial nominees. And so when Chairman Chuck Grassley left the Senate Judiciary Committee chairmanship to go take over Senate Finance, I started the Article 3 project earlier this year because I think this fight is too important. So at the Article 3 project, we are fighting for President Trump's judicial nominees, making the positive case for the nominees, punching back against the attacks on these nominees, defending the process. The Democrats are trying to claim that the process is unfair or rigged, which it's not. So we look at the history of the confirmation process and punch back against those attacks. And then one of the big things that we want to do is punch back on what I call the assaults on judicial independence. The Democrats are losing badly. The president's winning on this judicial fight. He's nominating and confirming, just like he promised he would before he ran for president. He's nominating and confirming judges who understand their critical but modest role is to interpret the law as written, or textualism, not how they wish it were written if they were a judicial activist. And so the president is doing a very good job here. So the Democrats don't like that, and they're trying to undo what the president has done through their radical and unconstitutional schemes like court packing, impeachment of Supreme Court justices, term limits. So we're punching back against these attacks at the Article 3 project.
And that's why that's why the Lawrence VanDyke nomination is so significant, because some folks might say, why are they attacking a former Montana Solicitor General? Usually this stuff is non-controversial and it goes right through. They're doing it because the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals is so important right now, because it used to just be the San Francisco nut job court. Now, thanks to Trump nominees, it's going to, if Lawrence VanDyke gets on the bench, it'll be near an even split almost on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals.
Yeah, that's correct. So if you look at, your listeners can go to judiciarytracker.com, which is part of the Article 3 project, and we look at where the court stood on January 20th when President Trump took office versus where they are now. And President Trump is making significant inroads on the federal judiciary, and he's flipped the Supreme Court from a 4-4 tie with a vacancy to a conservative majority, 5-4. He's flipped the Third Circuit from Democrat-appointed judges having a 2-seat majority to now Republican-appointed judges having a 2-seat majority. He is going to flip the 11th Circuit. And on the 9th Circuit, this is important, he's gone from where it was an 11-seat majority on the 9th Circuit to where we're going to have, after these latest batch of judicial nominees work their way through the Senate and get confirmed, it's going from an 11-seat Democrat majority to just a 3-seat Democrat majority.
Remarkable stuff. Mike Davis, thank you so much for your time. We're out of time, but it's been a pleasure. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you very much.